Welcome to ACM, Asian Voices and Visions from Around the World. I'm your host, Juno. We're in Seoul, South Korea today, and our guest is Bryan Do. Bryan is Korean American, born in Columbus, Ohio, and raised in California. Bryan is an entrepreneur, tech executive, journalist, philanthropist, and a family man. After a wildly successful 10-year stint at Microsoft, he founded and sold one of the very first craft beer companies in Korea to Anheuser Busch, and now runs the Three Societies Distillery, where he achieved a remarkable feat by introducing the first ever Korean Single Malt Whisky called Kiwon. This achievement was recognized further when he won the World Single Malt Category Gold Award at the 2022 San Francisco World Spirits Competition. This was rather unusual and shocking accomplishment for such a young whiskey from a country unknown in the whiskey world. I believe this feat is telling of Bryan's character, leadership, and his obsession with quality. In our conversation, Bryan and I dive into a wide range of topics, from his upbringing as an Asian American in California, the LA Riot, to becoming the most innovative and successful entrepreneur in the beer and spirits industry in South Korea.
I was born in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, 1974, which makes me almost 50. So I will be turning 50 this year. And I was raised mostly up and down the coast of California, though. I didn't stay in Ohio too long. All the way up from San Francisco down to around Orange County area, and then mostly moved to LA during my elementary school years, and was raised and did most of my schooling in LA, and graduated UCLA 96, political science major. And came to Korea literally, I think it was 6 days after I graduated, after I walked the stage. My career in Korea was actually grad school, then helped a friend out at a internet startup. Then I left there and then wanted to become a journalist. So I joined Arirang TV to be a journalist. Before that, I was working at Arirang TV as a part-timer. I was the show host on a fairly popular quiz show for kids back then. And then I did Arirang TV for 2 years, then got into a life-altering car accident.
Okay.
And then I had to start making money because of that. So went into the private field. And
How old were you when you had the accident?
I think I was 29. I want to say 28, 29, somewhere around then. And I had to go into start to make more money. So I went into the private field and doing PR. Then joined a PR firm for 2 years, and then I was scouted to Microsoft Korea to be the Xbox brand manager, which I promptly said yes to, of course. Anyone I think in their early 30s.
Did you enjoy playing games?
I actually didn't enjoy playing games.
Okay.
Ironically, I was not a big gamer, but I really liked the challenge and how fun it was, because console gaming wasn't big in Korea. If there was any console game that was big, it was PlayStation, Winning 11 back then. And Xbox only had, in football, I think they only had, I don't even remember what we had back then, but it was mostly Halo.
Okay, yeah.
And so I jumped at that opportunity, and then after that, my opportunities within Microsoft grew and grew and grew until I went to Singapore for about 4 or 5 years, and then I came back to Korea. And at the end, before I resigned, I was in charge of the Windows and Office consumer business for Korea. Yeah.
Okay. Growing up in the States as a child, what were your interests? What fascinated you as a child?
As a child, I was never really into books. I was more into, of course, I was more into playing and, if I want to step back as a child, I was, I think what my mother and what I do remember is I was kind of a joker in the class, and I remember being very proud being selected as a class clown in 4th grade.
Where were you at this point?
At Long Beach.
Okay.
Then. And yeah, that's what I fondly remember, always joking around in class. My mother said I was never a studious student, but I wasn't a bad student either, just probably B's, getting by with B's and B pluses until my high school years, where I started to kind of try to study. But I think even before then, I kind of knew that may not be the route that I'd be taking in studies. So I did a lot of sports when I was young. I've been doing sports pretty much since I can remember. I think it started off with baseball, and then it was I wanted to.
What was your position?
First base.
First base.
Yeah, first base. And I wanted to get serious about a sport, and I enjoyed hunting and shooting because I lived in a very small town in California called Taft.
Okay.
And it's near Bakersfield. I think that's the drug infested place in Southern California, kind of in the desert side. But yes, I was hunting back then, and I loved shooting guns, and I wanted to get serious about that. So I ended up trying to qualify for the Junior Olympics in target shooting. It would have been 50 meters, just your bog standard 38. And I had a lot of guns back then. And
is that when you picked up the fedora or the
No. That's much later.
Much later.
That's just out of happenstance and necessity. But yeah, I did that for a while, and then I ended up losing a lot of friends because it's a very lonely sport. You kind of do that by yourself all the time. My mom's just shuffling me to the shooting range and back, and into competitions. And then I kind of, because of that, I kind of fell out of that sport. I didn't like it, and then promptly ended up with a bunch of friends playing, not playing, but skateboarding and riding BMX, and then in seventh grade, I really wanted to get into mountain biking. And my mother said, "Oh, I'm not buying you that." I think it was a $400-$500 bike, which back then probably is the equivalent to a $4,000-$5,000 bike now. And she was like, "You're gonna have to earn your own money," and that's when I started working, and I don't think I've stopped working since 8th grade, 7th or 8th grade. I don't remember exactly when.
What was your first paid job?
I was a box boy at a Korean supermarket.
Okay.
Yeah, I learned a lot of things about life at that first job. Getting into favor with the ajumas in the back that would make me food
Right.
During the breaks. Getting into favor with some of the the Korean gangsters that work there, like actual literally gangsters, and they had me doing favors for them and trying to get on their good side and things like that. Yeah, it was a very interesting time back then. But it learned a lot about life.
7th or 8th grade is like 14, 15?
14. 14, yeah.
Okay.
14. The summer of 14 into... I worked there quite a bit, actually. I think like 8 months I worked there, even after I bought the bicycle. And then I bought the bicycle from my neighbor who ended up building a massive mountain biking company out of the back of his garage. And I was actually his first employee. At the age of 15, I bought the bike. Then he was like, "Hey, do you want to work for me?" I said, "Yeah." All I did was boxing.
Did he give you any stock options?
No.
First employee.
I wish I had. Well, actually, no, because the company went under. It became massive, and they did some dodgy accounting practices, and it went under after a while. But it was a fairly big company, moved into a huge place. But anyways, yeah. After that, just job after job after job, and I don't think I've had probably over 6 months off since then in doing some kind of job. Yeah. My first job boxing groceries, I had to work on Sunday, and it was actually that grocery store. It was actually next to my church, and as soon as I got out of church, I'd go and work, and then the church people would come to the grocery store and they would see me working, and I was embarrassed. I definitely say I was embarrassed then, but I kind of, at the end of the day, was like, hey, I'm gonna have a brand new bike after this, so let's suck it up and get this done. And yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Were you in California early 90s, 1991, when the riot happened?
Yes.
Is it okay if I ask you some questions about just that experience?
Yeah. So I was at Fairfax High School during the riots in April 29th. And during that time, I was actually the student body president of my high school. And like I said, I didn't study a lot, but what I did was I did a lot of these social activities. I was always in some leadership class since junior high school. I attended all these leadership camps. I was the student representative for the 5th district in Los Angeles under Mayor Tom Bradley back then, Councilman Zev Yaroslavsky. So I would go once a month and talk to them about what's going on with the youth and things. So I did a lot of these things, and because of that, I got naturally into as the student body president. And when the riots happened, unfortunately, my father had a shopping center near Koreatown. He has had a business in Mexico for decades, and because of that, his Spanish was fluent. He had a lot of friends in the neighborhood, and luckily, all his Spanish and Hispanic Mexican friends came and protected our store at the end of the day. But I did end up, because I had an arsenal back then from my shooting days. I ended up on the top of my roof. I remember vividly stacking water at like strategic locations on the roof because people were throwing firebombs there. And luckily, because we were so far from the parking lot and all the vans of the neighborhood people were blocking, they couldn't get it to the roof. And I didn't have to discharge my gun at all. I did have a friend pass away during there, and it was fairly turbulent then. And because I was the student body president, of a fairly, I would say, diverse school back then. Fairfax High was on Melrose and Fairfax. We had a very, very diverse population, but I think the majority would probably be 50% Hispanic and African Americans back then. So they had asked me to go around. I went to I think a half a dozen schools in South Central to explain about why Koreans felt this way and what we felt and things like that. So that was an eye-opening experience during that time. Yeah, I wish I could have used that in my college applications, but it was already done with.
How is that? Because I'm sure it's changed you in significant ways.
It actually changed me in a way where it opened my mind towards what other cultures thought about other cultures. Back then it was because maybe I was still a teenager, and those things really didn't. It was just like, oh, that's happening to the other race. So what? It's just they must have done something wrong, or there was no backstory. There was no behind story to that. I think the Rodney King beatings was before that, and it was like kind of more pop culture back then. And it's like, oh wow, this guy got beat really bad by the police, and I really didn't even think about what was the context behind of this anger and of this animosity towards other races, from other races, whether it be the Mexicans being angry at the Koreans, the African Americans being angry at the Koreans also. I learned a great deal of why they were angry and what that pent up anger, where that came from. Yeah. I think that's about it.
In Microsoft, so I think you've stayed there for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And then you jumped right into craft beer. Is that right?
Yeah.
How did that transition happen? And why did you want to start your own business?
I wanted to start my own business because this is one of the most frequent questions I get asked. Why did you leave such a cushy job as an executive at back then? It was the most sought after workplace in Korea, and I think I always say is because I could at the end of the day, and that's not because I was cocky or arrogant. It's because I did a lot of the homework before, and while I was doing my homework, I was also building up credibility for myself at Microsoft. It was to the point where I always tell people when you're about to leave the company, the best thing you need to hear is, in Korean it would be, 아쉽다. 저 친구가 가니까 아쉽다. So it's basically, it's a shame that guy's leaving, or oh man, what are we gonna do? That guy's leaving. That's something that you have to build up so you can gain not only traction, but you can get confidence in yourself and take bigger risks in the next project or the next thing that you do. Because at the end of the day, if all goes wrong, you can fall back and come back to that company or that person or whatever it is that you were doing before. Because they were saying, oh, it's a shame that guy's leaving. And that's why I say, because I built that up, and I also did a lot of the homework beforehand and making sure that the opportunities for success were there before I took that leap.
What year was this, and how old were you when you made that jump?
This was when I was 39. And I was getting into it was 2013 and the very end of 2013. I had a very bright future ahead of me at Microsoft, and it was quite risky for me to leave. However, I think I had that 40-year-old itch that most men do. A lot of people go out and buy Porsches or some new toy. I built a brewery at that time because I thought that, look, 40s is going to be the time where I make my money. And if I do make my money, I'm going to make my money in 40s. So let's take this risk. My dad also was always pushing me. My father was a businessman all his life. He was actually a painter, but he became a businessman out of necessity. And he would always tell me, why are you making the richest man on earth richer? You have to make yourself rich. So I had that in the back of my mind all the time, and I thought, okay, I think this is a good time and opportunity to take that risk. And as I said earlier on, that because I could is because there was the opportunities for success that I saw in front of me. And I saw the market for craft beer in Korea very nascent, very beginning, and it was exploding everywhere else in the world. I knew it was only a matter of time that it caught up to Koreans. I also had a passion for making beer, and it just 1 + 1 = 2. It just easily added up. I had a bigger vision to change the Korean drinking culture in Korea, just to make it a little bit more people wanting to drink for the pleasure of drinking rather than to get drunk. Back when I was working, it was much worse. I mean, it was worse than it was when I was there, but yeah, it was just, how fast can we drink? How much can we drink? How drunk can we get? And then doing that on repeat again. So that was kind of a bigger goal and vision I had. And it's still part of my vision and goal that I have now, that I've set for this company too.
How long were you working on the craft beer company for? Can you tell me a little bit about sort of the journey of getting it sold, getting it acquired by, can I say the name?
Yeah.
Budweiser?
Yeah. What had happened was in 2013, at the end of 2013, I had started looking for places, and okay, this is the company that I want to build. And it was a big risk because the laws hasn't changed. The laws for distributing beer outside of your facilities hadn't changed. I knew it was going to change, and they said it was going to change, but I had taken that risk. And because I had taken that risk, I got pretty much first mover advantage over a lot of people that waited for that. And that gave me about a 6-month head start in front of everybody. I knew how to make beer, but I didn't know how to make beer in a commercial production sense. So my modus operandi, my philosophy in working, and even at Microsoft and before, was to surround myself with people that were better than me in what we're trying to do. So I went out and hired somebody who can build a brewery. Then I hired a brewer who can make large quantities of beer than me and had much more experience than me. So, and I built my team up from there. And yeah, because of that, we were making very delicious beers much faster and much better than anybody else in the competition. Ours was much more consistent, the taste and everything about it. So we just skyrocketed. we built another niche within there, making a premium craft beer, and a lot of people said, "Oh, no one's going to buy premium craft beer; it's too expensive." And then everybody just started buying it. And then after that, we were working on, as a group, as an industry, to change that law, to change that law to make sure that more people can get it at a more affordable price. So on the background, we were working on that to change the liquor taxes. Eventually, which happened in end of 2017, 2018, I think. And then the flood of people came into the market. And before then, I was looking for, because I had grown so fast, I had thought, okay, this facility that I have right now is going to last me at least for 10 years. And it didn't. It only lasted me 4 years, I would say. And we were just adding and moving and building, and it just got too small. So I needed investment I wanted to build a bigger, fancier, where people can come and enjoy, closer to the city. And while I was looking for investment, someone said, "Hey, would you mind talking to Anheuser Busch for investment?" I said, "Sure." And back then, everybody was opening up their wallets for us, pretty much. I can pick who I wanted as an investor. But I could have made more money from a lot of different people, private equity or other Korean companies that wanted to buy me out. But I chose Anheuser Busch because they had, number one, I thought they had a better reputation worldwide, and I wanted to bring my company worldwide. Number two, of course, the biggest beer company in the world. They know what they're doing. And number three, they had pretty much the same vision that I had for my company. And I thought, okay, it's a pretty good marriage here. Even though I'm not going to be making as much money as I could with another company, I'd like to see these guys take over my company. And eventually that's what they did. I stayed with them for another 3 years just to manage how it would end up in the long run. But Corona hit and things kind of took a left turn. During that time, I was always traveling. And when I was traveling to meet friends or acquaintances, I would bring my beers too, but bringing my beers was a little bit too heavy, and for what we can get out of it, it wasn't the best gift to bring to a lot of people. So I ended up bringing a lot of single malt whiskey, and because of that, I brought like Asian single malt whiskeys to my friends in Western countries, and they would always say, "Oh, where's this from?" I'd say, "Oh, this is from Japan. Oh, this is from Taiwan." And those are the only two, mainly back then, before it went crazy. And they would always ask, "Why don't you bring Korean whiskey?" And I was like, Korean whiskey is not that good. And it wasn't really made in Korea either. So I was like, no. And then that got me thinking, why is there no Korean whiskey? And people telling me, "Bryan, you got to make Korean whiskey." So again, the opportunity was there. I saw the opportunities for success and how I can do it. Luckily, I had gotten a little bit older and wiser, and more importantly, I pretty much had experience in how to build not just a company, but an alcohol-related company.
At this point, have you exited from the venture, or?
No, not quite.
Okay.
We had written down on the contract that Bryan Do is going to be making spirits, and it's not going to be related to beer. So they, back then, was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, forget it. We're not into whiskey or spirits." Now they would like to be into it, but back then it was like, "No, we're not going to be into that." So yeah, go ahead, do what you want.
This is Anheuser Busch.
This is Anheuser Busch. So I just said, okay, I'm going to do it. And went about pretty much the same way, finding someone who could build a distillery and run the distillery, and had started to build a small team. And at the very beginning, for the first year and a half, we only had, including me, 5 employees, because there was nothing much to do except make whiskey, just make, stack. And I did everything at the very beginning. Literally, I commissioned everything. I bought all the stainless, and we just put everything together. I was doing everything except for making whiskey at the beginning. I was trying to make the standard operating procedure for someone else to take it from me. And I think I did that for about a year by myself. So driving a truck, working the forklifts, taking in tons of malt, taking in barrels, did all the grunt work at the beginning, so I know how everything runs. I think that was good and bad. It was good because I can learn about everything before, but I think it's bad because I built it. Now everybody's reliant on kind of the small stuff with me sometimes, because if something breaks down, I built it, so I need to go back and I need to fix it. So good and bad with that, but overall I think it was a good experience. And now I can, when I tell my employees to do this and that, I can easily tell them, hey, I did that way before you did. I was doing this way before you did. This is how you do it. So it's good. It's kind of like, I felt like now I'm a proven kind of a general in the war field, where in the field where, okay, I'm leading them into battle. They have to follow me, and they're going to follow me because they know I've been in the grunt. I've done the grunt work before then.
Are you American citizen? Do you have a Korean citizenship as well?
I am an American citizen. I do not have a Korean citizenship. I was very close to giving up my American citizenship because before I was going into Arirang TV, I really wanted to get into the Korea Foreign Service. And I had to take the civil servant exam and everything. And back then, they had allowed you to take the civil servant exam and then give up your citizenship. So I had started to take the Hagwon classes for that, and my Korean was pretty good, but I think my written Korean and my grammar was much better back then for some reason. I think not for some reason, because I'm getting gold, but it was good enough back then where I thought, okay, if I study hard enough, I can pass this test. But it was still 50-50. And then right while I was taking these classes, they changed the law that if you wanted to take the exam, you had to give up your citizenship. So I was like, that is a huge risk for me to give up my citizenship and not pass this test. So I actually decided not to do it after a while. Yeah. And a lot of coercing from my parents to say, are you crazy? Don't do that. It was okay before then. If I passed, great. I was planning on giving up my citizenship anyways.
We have to talk about Kiwon, your single malt whiskey. Yeah. So it's getting a lot of recognition worldwide already. Can you tell me about the process of finding the right place for your distillery? I believe it's in Namyangju.
Yeah.
So why did you choose Namyangju, and why do you think it tastes so good?
we chose Namyangju. Andrew Shand, our master distiller, and I chose Namyangju after a exhaustive search all over Korea. And we chose Namyangju for a few reasons. Number one, it was close to Seoul. I really wanted the tourism aspect of it and the ease of logistics of being in Seoul, for not just for the product but also for the people and my employees, and for me to go back and forth. Number two is we chose the location in Namyangju because it's on top of a hill facing north. It creates a very, very cold winter because the sun doesn't set over the mountains during the winter, and it just gets, once December hits, it just starts to get colder and colder and colder, and the liquid never goes up. It just keeps on going down until the springtime, and then it starts going back up again. And third is Namyangju is known for the clear water, crystal clear well water, and we needed plenty of well water for what we're doing. So those three those three reasons were the biggest impetus for us to choose Namyangju, and I'm very happy we did.
Did you expect your first batch to taste the way it did? What were you going for?
No, when we made Kiwon, Andrew and I were very not at odds, but we were kind of debating on what are we going to make this taste like. There's a bigger burden for being the first in anything that you do, and because we're the first single malt whiskey in Korea, there is, the naming. What are we going to do about the naming? It can't be a foreign name. It has to be a Korean name. Number two, the taste. It has to, as you know, and when you go to a distillery, every distillery has a pretty unique flavor profile that each distillery has, or each region has. And I've always been a Speyside fan ever since I got into whiskey. So I told Andrew, okay, I'd like a Speyside profile, but with an Asian twist, a Korean twist to it. So we were sitting around one day thinking about it, and went to lunch. And this is after a few weeks of debating what we're going to be doing. And, the side dishes come out first. So Andrew and I are eating panchan in the local eatery, which is full of just laborers, and it's nothing fancy, but you get the smorgasbord of panchans, and then you get your main dish. And that day the main dish was 제육볶음, spicy pork fry, I guess.
Yeah.
And we both looked at each other and go, that's it. It's got to be spicy, but it's got to be the Korea gochujang spicy, which is different than, an Indian spice or a Thai spice, or different spices that, some have more heat and just more pain. But I think Korean spice is a longer drawn out spice. However, it's got more depth and sweetness to it. So we were trying to figure that out, and how we're going to manifest that into the production of whiskey, and through some trial and error of on our fermentation side of making the wash, we ferment at a higher temperature, and we ferment for a longer period of time, and we stress out the yeast a certain way, so we're able to make that character, and it's shown on our first batches. We're really excited about it. After the first year, we initially thought, okay, Korea, we'll give it about 5 years, and then we'll start launching our product. This was June 2020. And then after year one, we were tasting some of our product that we had laid down in virgin American oak, and we were going, wow, this is really turning out good. The color's good. The color is like so dark already. And the taste doesn't taste like a 1-year whiskey. There was still some heat to it, but we're like, wow, this is maturing fast. And then that was that was in the summertime of 2021. And then came the wintertime of 2022. And it took on another animal in itself. And we were thinking, okay, there is something good about this maturation process that we got going. And not quite year 2, 1 year and 9 months, we had some competitions to enter. And mainly we were entering these competitions to get feedback from the judges. They give you a pretty good feedback from world-renowned judges and people that have been tasting whiskey for a lot longer than we have. Not Andrew. Andrew knew that it tasted really good, and I knew it tasted good, and the people that we're giving it to was like, oh wow, this is good. But it's only a year and 9 months. But we sent it out to IWSC and San Francisco Spirit Awards, 2 of the biggest or most prestigious competitions in the world. And we came back with awards rather than
just a feedback.
Comments and feedbacks. IWSC, we got a bronze. San Francisco, we got a gold. We were basically in the same category as a Yamazaki 12 or a Cavalon soloist. And we were a bit dumbfounded because we're like, wow, this is only a year and 9. We know it's good, but we didn't know it was that good. And then that kind of cemented what we had initially had thought, that it was good. And at this time, I literally was leaving for overseas. I was thinking, okay, I'm going to stay overseas for a year or 2 because back then I wasn't getting paid. I wasn't paying myself. And all the company was doing was pretty much just stamping out whiskey. There was nothing for me to do. The only thing I could have done was maybe started speaking to politicians earlier and trying to change the liquor laws in Korea again.
Does that require a lot of drinking?
No, not really.
Oh.
Not really. It's not as shady political lobbying as it sounds. Okay. It's pretty much basically upfront. It's what constituents will want anyways. We had a proven model through craft beer, and once they reduced the taxes on craft beer, more players came in. It created more tax money for the government. It created more jobs for the youth. It created tourism for the regional areas outside of Seoul. It was a no-brainer.
And puts Korea on the map.
Yeah. It's a no-brainer. So it's actually a no-brainer for whiskey also. And I'm sure the politicians will do it in 2 years' time. It just makes sense. So anyways, yeah, because of that, I had already bought my airplane tickets, and I was moving abroad with my daughter. And after a year, everybody was like, man, and I was going back and forth, and I was tasting the whiskey, and I was like, oh, man, this is really good whiskey. And I didn't want to toot my own horn or be biased, but it was really good whiskey. So we were entering other competitions and getting, good results too. So my master distiller and the employees were like, Bryan, you got to cut your overseas stay short. I was initially trying to stay for 2 years and then come back in time and give myself 1 year before launch to get things ready. But they were like, yeah, just come back now. So I literally just had to pack things up and come back after a year. And we launched 3 months after I came back, getting the packaging and the bottle and the label and the branding and everything.
Looks beautiful.
Yeah, we had to do that really quickly. And so far we're really happy with the outcome. We're still growing. We're not there yet. I think in a year or 2 it's going to be so much better. We're looking forward to that time.
Were there any employees, team members you've worked with in your previous venture that you're still working with?
Yeah. I brought over one, she is my right-hand lady. I brought her, she did my finances back in, like finances and HR, back in my previous company, and I brought her back. I brought back another person too, but due to health reasons, he had to quit. So I did have some of those people in mind, and I'd like to get some more people back if I could, but they've all kind of moved on, and they're doing their own things. I was just mentioning this the other day. A lot of my production staff, they're very successful in doing their own beer businesses right now. One of them, I think, has probably the best beer in the best craft beer in Korea, called Soul Gypsy, and other people are brewing for other places, and they're doing really good.
That's amazing. Would you say that, and because you've talked about people quite a lot, is that the main attribute that is most important to you in terms of building a company when you're trying to build something from scratch?
Yes, I'd have to say that is, that's pretty much the most foundational work that you have to get, and you have to get done quickly and correctly. If that foundation isn't set correct, it's very difficult to become successful. One of the other things that I think is a pillar in something that I have to do is I don't compromise on the quality of my product, whatever it is. Whether it be price, time, how difficult it is, there cannot be a compromise. I've learned that from Microsoft. When you make a great product, it doesn't matter, people will buy it. I had to market the most boring product on earth, which was Microsoft Office. That is not a easy product to sell, but it just sells because it's a great product. It's a product that many people can't live without. You don't need to market it heavily. So that's kind of the same thing, is if I make a product that people get hooked on, and that you don't take any compromises in the quality of it, people at the end of the day, even if it's a bad marketing program, even if it's a bad sales program, will come around and find it, and if there's consistency in there, come back and try it again.
How did you initially go about recruiting the first, let's say, 5-10 employees in your first venture?
I've had this thing that a lot of people have told me in my life. I have inbok. So I have people luck. I guess that's what you can translate it to in English. So I did feel that I had a lot of good people around me. I'd have to say my team at Hand & Malt Brewing Company would run circles around some of my teams at Microsoft. And those people, some of them didn't even go to college. And I think that's where their hunger and their passion and their and what I call give a shit attitude came from, and they had something to prove. So yeah, I assembled just an awesome team at Hand & Malt, and those guys were so passionate about the company, passionate about growing the company. They took it as their own company. So it was really good in that sense. And I think I got lucky in a few hires that I did at the very beginning, and they were able to influence how other employees came in and what we looked for and things like that. So there's no like set criteria that I had set. One of the things I did do is I didn't really care about what college or what education they had. And the other thing was, because I'm pretty good at looking people, I would be one of the first people to actually interview the people, and I still do that now, is if I have a pretty good gut feeling about them, then it pretty much ends up being a good choice. And again, I don't even look at the resume, especially in the education space.
Do you have any employees who served in the Marine Corps?
Any employees who served in the Marine Corps? No, I don't right now. I did in my previous job. I did, but not in this one. Not that I think.
How was that person?
How was that person? Yeah. He was good. He was a go-getter. I didn't have to tell him what to do. He kind of just figured it out and did it by himself. And that was a really good attribute. That's a strong attribute that I look for in a lot of my employees. But yeah, I can remember that's what kind of stood out with him.
Yeah, I'm not saying that everyone who's served in the Marine Corps, for their national service, is going to be like that. But I definitely was surprised by a lot of Korean kids that I've met in the Marine Corps, that I've developed a really great sense of camaraderie. I'm bringing 2 of them actually to the UK to work in my business, and it's the same. I don't really have to tell them anything. They just the eyes lock, and then they know what to do. Yeah. And hopefully they sort of kind of spread more of that energy amongst other staff that I have.
Exactly.
It might be difficult because it's obviously in the UK, but what makes you, I guess, what gives you joy right now in life?
My daughter.
Yeah.
My daughter, bar none. No other joy in my life. I have an insane amount of stress right now, an insane amount of work. I have never, ever been this busy in my life as I am now. However, I can just come home, see my daughter, and all that stuff kind of goes to the side, and I can relax and focus on just being there for her. And that is kind of a joy that gets me going lately. Other things is still exercising, still working out, still keeping active. And I think I've done that since I was a child, and I keep trying to do something active at least in my life. I don't think I've ever kind of just like stopped exercising in my life. Same as stopped working. I don't think I've ever stopped working. I've done enormous amount of jobs that has helped in each way, has helped me in doing what I do now and building up for the successes I've done. I've been a box boy. I've been a warehouse guy. I sold hot dogs at a park. I flipped burgers at a beach. I've worked as a bank teller before. I've done tutoring. I've done, and then it goes into my professional fields of I've done PR. I've done marketing. I've done sales. All of those things you kind of take a little bit from here and you learn and you keep that up in here and you end up using it someday. So yeah, those are a lot of the things that are still helping me now.
If you could do any jobs now, what is there sort of a type of job or a thing you would want to do?
I wouldn't mind going back into the corporate world. I think a lot of people say, no, you wouldn't. But also, it's the same thing. People were like, "Oh, you crazy? Why are you quitting that job?" But I was kind of in this path to become a leader at Microsoft, and I think if I go back to a bigger Fortune 500 company, I'd like to do that. I'd like to see what I can do in leading a big corporation. I have the confidence, and I think I could do it. So that's kind of an itch that I have right now, and I'd like to go back. In terms of just pure pleasure for me, I would like to actually go back. I really loved being a journalist. That was a real joy in my life. It was like one of those times where I would skip and whistle to work. The pay was horrendously low. That's the reason why I had to quit. But just imagine you meet new people once or twice a week, new interesting people, and you get to pick their brains and interview them, and they're nice to you. It's just it's such an awesome job to have. If I would be able to get paid a lot more, I think I probably would have stayed, definitely, and continued doing that, because you just meet interesting people and you talk to them all the time about new interesting ideas. And
do you have like the most memorable interaction that comes to your mind?
Most memorable were just fun stories that I did. White River rafting, rock climbing, just these weird stories that I did. I was the main sports correspondent during the 2002 World Cup.
Wow.
And I went to every game. And it was insane because Korea was winning all the time. And I was lucky enough to be at every game. At the end of the day, I didn't go to the last game.
Okay.
Good. Okay. So traveling all around Korea and Japan too, right?
No, I didn't go to the Japan side.
Okay.
I just went to the Korean ones. And I missed being with all my friends during that madness. So the last game, I told my boss, I was like, I'm not going to work the last game. I want to be with my friends. And we lost that game. But all the other games, it was
the last
really fun.
four? It's the last four.
The final, the semis.
Brazil?
No, it was against Germany. I remember.
Okay.
Yeah, we lost against Germany. And then we couldn't go to the finals. So we went to the third or fourth place game and lost to Turkey, I would say, back then. I don't remember. Yeah. It was just such a rewarding job to have. But
you wouldn't give up, obviously, the career that you've had, and I guess the paychecks you've also got.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm never a. My parents will tell you this. I was never a money guy. My brother was. My brother was always, when I grow up, I'm gonna have this big of a house and blah blah blah. And ironically, I'm richer than him.
I was gonna ask you that.
But yeah, I was never a. When I was 16, I remember, the car I want and the job I want when I'm older is maybe be like a university teacher or a high school teacher driving a Volvo station wagon. And that's kind of what that was like my goal. I didn't have goals to make a lot of money and to be rich. And that's kind of something that's part of me now. I don't have a fancy car. I don't wear fancy watches, nor fancy clothes. I just am not into that. The money that I do have, I mean, I'm not poor. The money I do have, I don't like to spend it too much. I guess I'm a spendthrift. But also, I think the money that I do have right now, I could probably comfortably live for a long time with that. And I like to give back to the community as much as I can. I've been doing some things every year. I kind of allocate either my time or my money to help a certain sector, a certain area, or certain things. I think the first year was after I sold my money and made some money, the first year was Habitat for Humanity. The second was giving back to my college that provided me with scholarships too. And then third was kind of helping other entrepreneurs. And then after that was helping that was with money. The other one was the year after that was actually helping them with my time, which I think was more valuable to guide them and to help them into making their businesses successful. Yeah.
Well, you're doing that now, so thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So obviously Q1 has still many years to go. Let's say Q1 starts taking off in a big way. I mean, it already has, but many years down the line, sort of goes on more of an autopilot mode. What's next for you?
Retirement. I mean, unless somebody really coaxes me back to running a Fortune 500, I don't think I'm going to run another company myself.
I mean, if you really, really liked journalism, you could always do that anytime, right?
Yeah, I could go back and be a journalist. I could. When I went away during my year that I was away from this business overseas, I had a taste of retirement, and it tastes pretty good. So I wouldn't mind.
You don't have the itch of wanting to do something, and
I think I've done almost everything that I can in this field. People are telling me, "Oh, you got to do a winery. You have to do a winery. You have to do the trifecta." And I said, "No, I don't want to do a winery." And I know what can be successful in Korea, and I think that's just going to be a really
sweet wine, Canadian sweet wine.
The only thing that would work is a sweet wine in Korea because of the Campbell grapes, the type of grapes that can grow here. That's the only thing. And of course, you could make a world-class Riesling, and you could make a world-class sweet wine, but I don't have that in me anymore. I think this will be my last big project. I'll do smaller projects. But again, if a company calls me back, maybe I'll think about it.
Last question. For people that are confused about, what to do, what sort of career path to go on, would you have any advice if you were to look back on your
I have two pieces of advice that I usually give is number one is just keep plugging away. Just keep on doing what you're doing if you're working at and try to rise at what you're doing. If you're a waiter or a waitress, or if you're serving burgers at McDonald's, or if you're selling hot dogs at a park like I did, or flipping burgers at the beach like I did, try to be the best at what you're doing and plugging away and learning from what you're doing. I learned finance when I was flipping burgers and selling hot dogs. This is how I have to manage back of the inventory and things like that. So I always take away something from what I've been doing and keep plugging away and trying to do the best of what you're doing. And what I said before is, make sure that when you leave that company or that place where you're working, people will say, "Oh, that's a shame. What are we going to do now that he or she is gone?" I think those are the most important things that they should keep on thinking of what they're doing. These days it's really easy to find a passion for what you want to do and keep on doing it. There's no societal pressures anymore to, you don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be a doctor anymore. You can be a world-renowned chef. You can be you can be a world-renowned creator or an influencer. There's so many things you can do with the passion that you have, and but you just have to keep on plugging away at it and trying to be the best at what you're doing at that time.
Mm-hmm. It would be great to see you in Europe if you're ever in that area. Please let me know. It would be great to show you Konbini as well.
I look forward to having my products there in the future. It's the UK market is that's the birthplace of single malt whiskey and good premium whiskey. So we're lucky that we're gonna try to get in there and do some niche, exciting things. We
have to introduce your whiskey at Konbini in Edinburgh. That'd be great.
Of course, I'd love to go to Edinburgh again and see it there.
Thank you so much for your time.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
I wanna fly away, just fly